to make every effort to remain united in the spirit of love in our center. We want to grow our love for our world and our home center family so deep that it is able and willing to overcome and forgive a multitude of misgivings. I see the spirit of hospitality in each of us and an urge to cheerfully share our home center with the world. If we were to put our needs aside and use our spiritual gifts to serve one another, we would be on the correct path. Light and the love to supply you with the stamina you will need to save this world. Yes, God, this is directly to you. Yes, I pray that everything we do within this home center family will bring peace to our world, will bind us together in light and love and peace. Amen. Yours.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I'm so glad all of you guys are here today. Thank you for attending here. And thank you for being with us out there in the internet world, the cyber world. All right. So anyway, what has been coming to me lately is this lovely little book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. Many of us are really familiar with that book. It's been a mainstay around Home Center. So this book, says life is a game. And so this, between the book and this phrase, life is a game, both of these have been popping up for me quite a bit lately. So I took that as a sign that it was time to explore and revisit some of these principles. So the book, Game of Life and How to Play It, was that book that got Jay started on his path many, many, many years ago. Jay, for those of you that aren't familiar with, he's the founder of Home Center, and he passed a couple of years ago. 2.5 years ago now, a little more than that. But anyway, that was one of his mainstays that he lived by. And it shaped his world for the rest of his life. And in reality, it's one of the founding books with the principles and teachings that Home Center is based on. A lot of you don't know that, but that is a lot of the principles in there is exactly what the foundation of our organization, the Home Spiritual Center, is founded on. Florence Shinn, who's the author of that book, is one of those first people that was teaching and discovering the laws of metaphysics back in the early 1900s. So Florence was one of those people, along with, trying to find their names, Mary Baker Eddy, Emma Curtis Hopkins, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Ernest Holmes. So these are the beginning teachings as to what we understand today to be New Thought. They were the ones that introduced this into our world, and both churches of Unity Church and Christian Science Church, now known as the Center for Spiritual Living, are founded on the teachings of these people that wrote these books and had these laws of metaphysics in those formats for us to learn. So we have the laws of metaphysics, we have the laws of physics. We're learning about all of those in our channels like Gaia, and all the self-help books are teaching all of these laws. These laws affect our life, and they're a part of our co-creation and how we create our world around us. But when we're born, we don't know what these laws are. We're just born with no rule book. And we're born into this world that has laws, but we don't get to know what they are. It's not fair. It's not fair at all. Who plays a game and you don't even know the rules? Sure, I'll play that game. Yeah, let's sit down and do that. Well, what are the rules? Well, we're not going to tell you. You just get to figure it out. That's all. And that's kind of life. That's the way life is. We get to learn by trial and error, or error and ignorance. That's how we learn it. So what kind of game is that? It's not necessarily fair, but it's fun. Or it can be. But that was something we said yes to. We said, yeah, I want to play. Give me a place at the table. And then we don't get to know the rules. Yeah, just figure it out. They say, figure it out, have fun, bye. That's about it. But we are blessed to have forefathers and foremothers, like the list of people that I just shared with you, that have figured out what some of these rules are so that they can share them with us and teach us and give us an opportunity to make our life a little easier and a little more graceful and not so many ouches along the way. So I want to explore some of the laws that Florence Shinn laid out for us. And one of the laws is the law of expectancy. So Florence speaks about the subconscious quite a bit in her book and in her teachings, and how to impress our subconscious mind. She sees the subconscious mind as the engine, the steam engine, and it just needs instructions. It needs direction. It's this powerhouse of energy and creative possibilities. But if we don't give it conscious instructions, it'll just pick up whatever messages come to it in the subtle realms of our inner landscape. So it has the power to do whatever we put into it, whatever instructions we give it. She says faith is expectancy. And then she shares a quote from the Bible: according to your faith, be it unto you. Or we might say today, as she put it, according to your expectancies, be it done unto you. So, what are you expecting to happen in your life? What are you expecting to show up for you? Are you expecting the worst to happen? We don't want to, but do we expect it? Because we, program ourselves for that. I always cringe when I hear someone say, well, what else can go wrong? It's like, oh my God, don't say that. Because you're just programming that engine, that warehouse that lives in our subconscious to show you what else can go wrong. Oh, that's what you're asking? Well, allow me to show you. And then, of course, that next thing goes wrong. And what happens? Yep, I get to be right. I knew it. I knew it. Something else is going to go wrong. And we have the privilege of being right when we'd rather really be wrong. So we don't want to be saying that. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that we don't want to happen. We can all really struggle with expectancy. I mean, it's hard sometimes. We can feel like we might be duped or fooled if we expect the best, and then the not best happens, and then the worst happens, and we can feel like, shoot, I should have been paying more attention. How did I let that happen? But it can especially be hurtful when someone we care about and we love, we feel like we got fooled by or duped by. And that situation can really be difficult. And having those situations myself, I've come to a place in that where I feel like I'm pretty much at peace with that notion, and giving myself some grace around it. So I've decided in those situations that rather than believe, or I would rather believe, say that again to say it right, I've decided that I would rather believe in someone's goodness and be wrong than to believe the worst in them and be right. I don't want to do that. So I want to also hope that my belief in their goodness might help them reach a little higher. It might help lay that vibrational frequency in their world by my faith and my expectation in their goodness, that maybe they'll step a little higher. So I'd rather be wrong in believing in their goodness than believing in the worst and be right. So notice what you're expecting. Are you expecting a change for the better? Notice what habits you've developed. We create defensive habits. Sometimes in our expectancy, we create defensive habits because we don't want to be hurt and we don't want to be disappointed again. So we defensively believe the worst so that it eases the pain a little bit in our rightness. Our rightness can ease the pain. So again, I'd rather expect the best and be disappointed than expect the worst and be right. So if you're expecting the best to happen and it hasn't, then what do? You could say, well, it hasn't happened yet, but continue to expect, continue to have faith that it can and will and is going to happen. It's up to you to be in alignment with that. Yes, John.
Does this have something to do with manifesting?
Yep, it's everything to do with manifesting and intention setting. Yep, you're right. Thank you for that, for making that connection, because it's what now we call manifestation and intentions. They had a little different name for it around the turn of the century. Yeah, they have these laws, and now we've applied all these laws into what we call manifestation. So thank you. Appreciate that. So when we have something happen that, or not happen, that we had hoped and had faith and expected to, it's better to believe in it that it just hasn't happened yet. Emphasize the word yet. Florence says, begin to act as if you expect success, that you expect happiness, you expect abundance. She says, prepare yourself for the good. I love that. Prepare your world for the good to happen. So it has a place to land, it has a place to show up. Another law that Florence teaches is the law of substitution. And that one sounds kind of odd to me at first. It's like, huh? The law of substitution. But when I explored this in her book a little more, then it's like it made sense. So I wanted to share it with you today. Over the years of working with people, Florence had found that there are times when people's desires weren't really for their best good. They were really wanting something and working to manifest something that wasn't going to serve them well, or it would have a boomerang effect. Sometimes people desire things that don't belong to them. Well, I want that, but it doesn't belong to them. And if they covet something or wish something that doesn't belong to them, it can have consequences for them, turn out to be unfavorable. Or if they're imposing their will onto somebody else's will, that's a spiritual law that has consequences. We don't have the right to impose our will onto somebody else's will. So an example that she used in this is this woman that came to her and she asked Florence to speak the words that she would marry Sam. She was in love with Sam. I'm making up a name for the story. But she was in love with Sam, wanted to marry him. Well, Florence understood that would have been a violation of that spiritual law, because the woman was asking Florence to impose her will onto the gentleman. So she used instead these words that she spoke that says, for the right person, the divine selection, the person who belonged to her by divine right. And then she added, if Sam is the right person, you don't lose. And if not, you'll receive an equivalent. So that's, kind of demonstrates that law of substitution. And this can be used in anything. It can be used in a job. It's just a principle. That principle can be used in finding a career path. It can be used in finding the right car. It can be used anywhere in life. So the woman saw Sam frequently, but their relationship was not going anywhere. Their friendship was not making any headway. So one evening she called Florence and she told her that last week I didn't really care for Sam that much. He just wasn't working for me, would be my words to add to it. And she says, well, maybe Sam is not the divine selection, and the other person may be the right one. There's someone else that would be the right one. I like the way they use the word divine selection. We have different terminology now, but this is the turn of the century, and they were just formulating these words, and then we've morphed it over time. But anyway, so I love that word. So soon, the woman met this other person, this other man, and he fell in love with her. And he started saying to her all the things that she wished Sam would say. He started doing for her all the things that she wished that Sam would do. And she fell madly in love too. And they lived happily ever after. Isn't that a nice story? But the point of the story, yeah, you want that one, huh? But the point of the story is how she used what she calls the law of substitution. The woman wanted one thing, but it wasn't for her best, and she was actually violating a spiritual law. So rather than tell the woman how wrong she was, she didn't do that. She just broadened and deepened what the woman's request was and made it about what she really wanted, which was to be loved and to love. That's really what she wanted. It wasn't necessarily the person, but it was what she was looking for, was to love and be loved. So she broadened it to just that, speaking the words, the right person, and the divine selection. So that was really beautiful. And so she also, what we might add today is this or better. That's another common one that we use today. We add that. I want this or better, or the right action for me around this, because that's what our heart's desire is. So we've kind of broadened it a little bit in a little different way, but saying the same thing. Another law that I want to explore that could be a bit confusing because it contrasts to the teachings, some of the teachings about manifestation and intentions that are being taught today. And that's the law of divine pattern and intuition. It sounds normal, but the way she's exercising it is a little bit different. Florence says, you must always ask for the right circumstances or the divine selection, as she used, and not ask for specifics. Well, it's a little contrary to what we're being taught sometimes in some of the videos we're showing on Wednesday nights and some of the teachings in the books that says, get specific, get down to the details of what you want and visualize that. So then there's these two teachings. Don't be specific, be specific. So how do you manage that? Because they both make sense when you just sit with them individually. So for me, I look at what I'm working on. What is it that I'm working on? If I'm searching for something broad, like purpose in life, what's my purpose in life? What might I be doing in my career field? Those are really broad statements, and I don't have specifics for those. And I think that's when you would use Florence Shin's principle of not being specific. But if I'm working on a project, a specific project, then I think that's the time to be specific. Or you have something very circumstantial that needs to work out in a particular way for your outcome. Then you can get into the specific details and then still include this or better. So an example of one of the things for me is I'm planning this week to have this big yard project. And I'm going to be working on the details of the supplies and what I need to buy and what is the cost. And I'm going to be specific in my intention setting and manifestation around that. I want very little money. I want good quality stuff with very low cost. I want it to be easy and graceful. I want the right help to show up at the right time, for whatever I might need. So those things are appropriate to be specific. I don't think I want to be too generalized in that, because I have the project I need to get done within this time frame, and I don't want to run into difficulties. So to me, that's the way I work it out. So you guys can find what works for you, but I just want to share with you what works for me, and how I utilize both of those philosophies or teachings. If I'm buying a house or looking for a place to live, or even perhaps a relationship or a job, then we might say, show me the right action and I'll do my part. Jay always would add that, do your part. You got to show up for it. You got to show up for what the universe is providing you. Otherwise, it'll just go right on by. We don't get a free ride. We don't get a free train ride in life very often. Sometimes, but you never know what the karma that is around that. So show me what it is and I'll do my part. I'm open to divine selection. Give me the eyes to see what God has shared with me, or what God has in store for me, or what my highest calling is, or my purpose. Whatever words is right for you. Those are some of the ways of saying those and using the words to get you in the right vibrational frequency for what it is that you want to bring in. Another example that Florence shared is a woman who came to her for treatment for prosperity. This woman was worn out. She was dejected. She was discouraged. She was broke. She had $8 to her name. That's all the money she had in the world was $8. So Florence says, "Good, you got $8. Let's do this." She says, "We'll bless that $8 and multiply them as Jesus multiplied the loaves and fishes. For he taught that everyone had the power to bless and to multiply, to heal and to prosper." So she put all of her faith and all of her energy into that being at the absolute truth. So Florence's blessings included these words for this woman: "Infinite Spirit, open the way for great abundance for," and she said the woman's name. "She is an irresistible magnet, for that belongs to her by divine right." And Florence told her to repeat that continually. Well, after the words of the blessing, the woman said, "Well, what do I do next? Now what do I do?" And Florence says, "Follow your intuition. Do you have a hunch of what to do?" And Florence, she teaches that intuition is within, to look within for your intuition. It's not out here, it's in here. So she said, look within. What is your hunch? What's your intuition telling you? Well, the woman replied, "Well, I don't know, but I seem to have a hunch to go home." So Florence says, "Well, then go home. Don't deny it. Don't deny your hunch." Well, the woman says, "Well, I have $8. That's just enough fare to go home." At that time, it cost $8 to fly from New York to a distant city. That was a long time ago. That doesn't even buy a hamburger today with fries and a drink. Whew, yeah. So anyway, she had $8, just enough money to get home. So she did. She went home. She flew home. Well, Florence says in her book, she said in this story, she said what would have made sense, common sense, is to tell her to stay in New York, get a job, and start saving some money. Don't spend your only $8 on flying home. But she didn't. She's had a hunch. She says, honor the hunch. Don't deny your hunch. Or as she used the word, don't violate your hunch. That's a pretty harsh word, but that was the word that she used. So the woman went home. Later, she called on a friend. And through that friend, she got connected with an old family friend that gave her thousands of dollars. Yeah. And at that time, when $8 is airfare, you can imagine how much thousands of dollars. It's like millions to us today. So she had thousands of dollars that came to her in the most miraculous way. So the woman told Florence, she said, tell people about the woman who came to you with $8 and a hunch. That's what she had in her pocket, basically. It was $8 and a hunch. And from that, this miraculous gift of financial abundance showed up for her. So life is a game, and we're all learning the rules. We didn't come in knowing these rules. There's no rule book. No child is born with a manual. None of us have. Yeah, isn't that true? Wish they did. No, but we don't have the rules of this game of life. But we have people who have learned them, and they're sharing them in many ways. And then it's up to us to take those rules and apply them in our life. So try not to take things so seriously that life isn't fun anymore. That's only, uh, as Judith used to say, don't be so spiritual that you're no earthly good. Just have fun and see it as a game. That's one thing that Jay was so good at, is he saw life as a game. His workplace was a game. He would read a spiritual principle, and then he would demand from Spirit, show me this in action. Show me what this looks like in real life. And then he'd go to his workplace or interactions with friends, and he would watch for it to show up. And then he would say, oh, that's how that works. Okay, so this equals that. So that's how that works. And so he continued to develop himself in that way. So he would apply those metaphysical principles in everyday living, which is what HOME stands for, helping ourselves master every day. So we can appreciate our life and the goodness that happens and expect it. Expect the goodness to flow and make room for it in our life. And know that we can if we're unsure of ourselves, we can substitute things, words that don't feel quite right, or if we're unsure of our ground with it, change it to something else that feels more compatible and more in the flow of the universe, so that we get that vibrational frequency from within manifesting out into the world, so we match it in the quantum field of all possibilities and have it come to us. So we can all learn from these examples of Florence Shen and all these other luminaries that were early on, and empower yourself and participate in your outcomes, so that you're no longer a victim of the circumstances of life. You're empowered to create the circumstances in your life. So let's have a little meditation. So take a nice deep breath. Oxygenate your blood with a few deep breaths. And let's do something a little different today. Let's feel around inside of our body where trust lives inside. Where does trust live inside of you? Feel your internal landscape. Where would it be? Is it in your heart? Does trust live in your mind? Or maybe it's in your gut, in your solar plexus. And when you find it, appreciate that you can feel trust, knowing that you are your own greatest guide, trusting that you are your own leader, trusting that you are an expression of the divine. And allow yourself to be comfortable with your own divinity. Fully embody, embrace that part of you that is the expression of the divine. And trust your inner guidance, knowing that the divinity within you is always there for your best interest. That spark of God within is ever present and guiding you through your intuition and your hunches. Open your mind and your heart to the messages that are guiding you, even if they don't make sense. So let's take a moment now and see if there is an answer or a hunch or a nudge to the question you've been holding, or a project you've been working on, or a direction you've been looking for, or guidance you might have been afraid to see. Just open your mind and heart for a moment and see if there's a message for you, an impression, a feeling. Open your inner awareness to the feelings or words that are whispering to you. And give gratitude for that message, for that feeling or that hunch. We're deeply grateful for that. Feel that deep sense of gratitude informing the universe that that's what you want and more of. And trust that God is always there and helping you with these rules of this life in a most loving and benevolent way. And thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. All right. Anybody get a message? You're cold? Oh, Lynn, the little button is right there. Just hit the off button. Well, it's not quite the season to freeze people out yet, but it looks like we're doing it anyway. All right, so now it's time for our offering for the home center. So let's get your gift ready for the home center. Put it between your hands. Of whatever it might be, we're just grateful to receive, knowing that this blessing is going to bless the home center and move through the home center in whatever way it comes. We're so grateful to receive. and watching it come back to you and blessing you 100-fold of all of your wants, needs, and desires that are going to serve your highest and your greatest good. And so it is. All right. Thank you, Lynn. She's bringing it around. Okay, so I'll do the, oh no, I'm not going to do the announcements. I'm going to turn it over to Dick. It's not Wednesday night. Turn it over to Dick for the closing statement and his closing prayer.
I think it's time for another World According to Dick. This is a world according to Dick's files perspective. Another one on perspective. A couple has two little boys, ages 8 and 10, who are excessively mischievous. The two are always getting into trouble, and their parents could be confident that if any mischief occurred around town, their two young sons were probably involved in some capacity. The parents are at their wits' end as to what to do about their sons' behaviors. They had heard that a clergyman in town has been successful in disciplining children in the past, so they contacted him, and he agrees to see the boys. He asked to see the boys individually, so the 8-year-old was sent in to meet him first. The clergyman sat the boy down and asked him sternly, "Where is God?" The boy made no response, so the clergyman repeated the question in even sterner tones. "Where is God?" Again, the boy did not answer, so the clergyman raised his voice even more and shook his fingers in the boy's face. "Where is God?" Well, at that, the boy bolted from the room, ran directly home, and slammed himself into his closet. His older brother followed him in and said, "What happened?" The younger brother replied, "We're in big trouble this time. God's missing and I think we did it." Okay, now our closing prayer. God, it's likely that sometime today someone will push our buttons, challenge our goodwill, misread our intentions, tick us off, try our patience, rattle our cage, and judge us in haste. Do some or all of the above. So, may we find the grace we will need at such times to respond with patience, to trust and accept, to listen carefully, to reach out in peace, to be fair and just, to offer kindness, to anticipate goodness in all our words and deeds. Now, I know I'm expecting a lot, and we may need some help to do for others as we'd have them do for us. Yet this is our closing prayer this morning for ourselves and everyone around us. Our hearts are full of love. Our light is brighter than the sun. It's going to be a great day. Amen. Facebook Live and YouTube. This ends the Sunday service from the Home Spiritual Center. Home Center out.